Hi, welcome once again to our channel and to my video. Today, I have chosen a topic emotional intelligence. Why? Because of late, in the last few videos, I've been discussing on stress management and personality development and behavior. So, in order to control the behavior, which is very important for any manager, for any leader, for any person, whosoever is working in a group, it's very important to have a balance attitude. This is very important, a balanced approach, a balanced attitude when we work in group. Generally and most of the times it does not go as per our own wish, as per our own requirement, and therefore becomes sometimes very it becomes it's sometimes very irritating. That way, let me put it this way, irritating in a sense, because people, either they're not able to understand as to what you are emphasizing upon as a leader, or you are not able to explain them what is the case is. Either way, the things, or the intention of carrying out a work does not go as per the line, as per the desires, and therefore the activities, they do not come up as required. And for this, it is to have, because when so many people are involved in a particular activity, and therefore you cannot run an organization alone. One has to work with, along with the various people, various types of people who are coming from various backgrounds. From They have got various skill sets, and therefore it has got an implication on on the activities being performed. And therefore, for a leader, for a manager, therefore it is very important to understand the situation, to understand uh, the process. And this process is what we call it as, particularly we call it as dynamic nature. Then that this dynamic is, it's ever changing, and therefore a kind of stability is required for a person. Because if there is a change in the behavior, if the behavior changes, if and then, so how there are so many people, so they all are capable of making an impact, on the leader, for example, on a manager. And therefore it becomes very important for a manager, for a leader, to understand that he or she should not get distracted by the output of the behavior of the people, or the team members, for that matter, if I'm calling the team members. And therefore, because how to manage stress. So one of the major aspect is to how to manage stress is as to how do you balance your emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is, people, maybe say, according to psychologists, various psychologists, if you go through various researches, there are certain aspects that they two thoughts of thought process goes into this particular aspect. One is they believe into emotional intelligence. Other, they say no, this is that it is not there, and it has no meaning to it when we talk about on emotional intelligence. Nonetheless, most of the professionals, they feel it is very important for us to know a leader, himself or herself, and the people, to know around the people around them. Knowing is what I'm trying to say, is as to what they have got a mindset, as to what how does their behavior changes with the changes in the situation in a business, any business organization for that matter. Even in a house, there are the you think of something and it does not go according to the plan. There are certain factors which make an effect, and therefore all the people, the distractions comes into the working, into the thought process, into decision making. And therefore, when I talk about emotional intelligence, primarily, basically, to understand, let us understand this way, is it refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotion as well as the emotions of others. Now, having said this, It's very difficult when even to control our own emotions, because emotions, they are into cyclic nature. It keeps on repeating. It's not that the emotion has passed off. No, when it triggers off, any emotion triggers off in the mind, it keeps on in a cyclic manner until and unless you find a solution to stop it. So once the thought process goes into it, and thought process is what emotions now, it can be triggered by any factor, even if there is no factor, you make your own stories and it goes into a cyclic in nature. Now this ultimately it affects the performance, any job you are doing, and therefore it affects the performance, whether you are into house, whether you are into business, whether you are into dharma, or any kind of activity you are. Even if you're not you're doing any activity, you're all alone, but the thought process does not stop. And therefore it becomes very important for us to understand our own thought process, and to understand our emotions, and then the emotions of the other persons, and to make an understanding as to how to go about it. So this becomes very important, and for any leader, for any manager, this plays a very, very, very important role to control his or her own emotions knowingly. What I call it as knowingly is, and that is why it is an intelligence part of it. Intelligence is as to what you have, and as to how are you making use of your database, of your information, because all the thought process, all the emotional thought process for that matter, that triggers out from something which may or may not be there, but it triggers off. So one has to, should have the ability to control the thought process, so that it does not go into cyclic nature. Because when it goes into it, it triggers to from one to another, to another, to another. And originally, after a few seconds or a few minutes, the person does not know as to what was the original thought process, and therefore it becomes, in multiplication. So emotional intelligence is generally said to include at least three major components. It has three major components for our understanding. It's not theoretically proved or something psychologically proved. It is a point of discussion, or the point of understanding a particular this particular concept. So number one is emotional awareness, or the ability to identify and name one own's emotion. Now, naming emotion is very important to identify the emotion. Emotional awareness, that you are aware as to when a particular emotion erupts, whether it is, we talk about happiness, we talk about say sadness, we talk about fear, or we talk about fearfulness, or fearlessness, whatever the case is, because when we come across problems, when we come across certain situations which one does not anticipate, and it happens in a business organization, or even in a family organization, or when you are working in a group, that these problems comes up, and one has to deal with these problems on the merit of the problem. So this is very important. And the second is to harness those emotions, and harness is it is like ability to harness is the ability to work upon it. You should, when the emotions erupts up, you should be able to monitor it. Monitoring is very important, and an ability to apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving. So this is very important. Thinking and problem solving are closely related, and because one has to take a decision, and decision why? Because there is a problem. So this problem, in fact, it triggers on to the emotions of a person, and it is very difficult then to, because if something is not going as per the schedule, something which you have thought of is not according to as to what you thought of, this will, there is no control over it. it has to come. Like all the functions, goes into our liver functions, our heart functions, our kidney functions, so and so forth, digestive system functions, and therefore the brain also functions. We cannot think of stopping the functioning of a brain. But yes, what we as a human being, we should be able to understand this brain and to control its repercussions. And therefore this is very important for us to, and this is what we call it as intelligence. Not, one has not to be guided, but one has to guide the brain and not vice versa. In most of the cases it is, the brain controls the activities, and we keeps on thinking, we keep on doing as to what the brain says. No, what we have to do, it's the other way around. The other way around is that we should be able to control our brain and give instructions to the brain as to what you desire to do and what you do not desire to do. I mean, it's both ways. And the third is the ability to manage emotions. The first is your awareness. Second is you should be able to harness, you should be able to control it, and then you should be able to manage. Manage is to put it, we can, a human being for that matter, for it cannot be emotionless. There cannot be a situation, and there is a situation, reactions automatically come up. Now, whether they are negative reactions, whether they are positive reactions, that is a separate issue altogether. But it triggers off, the emotions. And again, uh, negative emotions and positive emotions, they are relative terms, relative to a particular situation. For one person it is negative, for the another person, he or she may looks upon as a negative, or he or she may look upon it as a positive. So there is nothing, what we can say it's a for apple, b for ball. No, but it is just for understanding, uh, so that we become a better person tomorrow. Because it is, it seems, as per the discussions or the lecture or the understanding, this seems to be very easy, but this is one of the most difficult tasks for a human being. Or when the any human being is in a position, to lead a group, or to, it's very difficult, to lead a group, because you can lead yourself, because you know yourself in a certain matter, or in a certain perspective, from a certain perspective. But it is very difficult if, say, 50% are working with you, and there again 50 multiplied by so many emotions, and all these people, they have got their impact on you, because they're working on you, they're looking upon you as a guide, as a mentor, as a problem solver. So, however, there are certain criticism about intelligence, emotional intelligence, or sometimes we might have gone through certain terminologies as emotional quotient. But again, the big question is, we cannot deny it. They are present. The emotional aspects are involved. You do certain good which you do not expect, or you get the desired result. It definitely it leads to enhancement of your mood. It goes up. You feel positive about it. You feel confident about it. But if it does not, so you feel low. The energy of the person goes down, and you feel, there is a low esteem in you. You think of as to how can I make a mistake, or how this mistake happened. So these are all relative terms. This is why I call it as a relative term. So you might picture someone, who never lets his temper get out of control. Uh, we look like a picture perfect person, and we very often we talk about, okay, fine, we met the person, and then the person was so looked to be so enthusiastic, looked to be so calm, looked to be so poised, but maybe mentally the person has it's a has got a good ability to monitor or to control his or her emotions. Now, no matter what the problems he or she is facing, or you might think that someone who has the complete trust of her his or her staff. So they listens to the team members. It becomes very easy to talk and always make careful and informed decisions. So when you stay calm, all these things, they fall in line. If you are not calm, calm in the sense it's, when you are not able to control your emotions, it makes an impact on the working of the other people as well. So emotional intelligence, or the ability to understand and manage your own emotions and those of the people around you. So again, I have been repeatedly saying it. Sorry, it's not about your own emotions, but the people who are, who are working in the team, or who are working in the group. One has to understand, or should understand, should be able to understand, so that both the various emotions can be put together, so that they can be directed in one towards one direction. Now, this is very important, to work in a direction. Unless and until all the people who are working in a group, the direction should be very clear with them. And who gives the direction? It is the leader who suggests the direction, and therefore all the people, because of their own knowledge about their own capabilities, or about their own thinking thought process. There are differences of opinion, and these differences of opinion, they leads to the disbalance in the controlling, or in even identifying the emotion. We do not know. It is again. Having said this, it is very difficult to identify exactly as to how do you categorize a particular emotion, because one emotion, is not complete entirely on triggered on one aspect. There are so thought process. There are certain combinations and permutations, and which leads to even in it does a juggling work in the brain, and the brain then sets the momentum so fast that it becomes very difficult to stop it somewhere. We cannot stop the working of the brain. Now, let us understand this. One important factor is we cannot stop. It cannot be stopped. But yes, of course, it can be redirected. It can be controlled. The thought process can be controlled, and this is one aspect. But you cannot stop the emotions to the once they triggered out, and it very happens. They ought to trigger off. So there's no. I do not want to say, okay, there is something negative. This is not negative. This is human tendency. This is human nature. And like all other functions of the body functions, their functions, the different parts of the body, they function. Similarly is the brain. The important thing is as to how to control these, because other things might need not be required a control that much, but the brain has got its own say working. So it is not desirable to stop thinking. The only thing I'm trying to suggest here is to redirect the thought process. So for leaders, and leaders I'm referring to as managers, as the head of the family, or the head of the organization, or the head of the department, so on and so forth. Having emotional intelligence is essential for success. Now, this is again one aspect is, if you want, if and everybody is looking out for success, and if success in now depends upon as to how good you are in controlling your the emotions, or the function of the brain related with the the aspects related to the brain. After all, who is more likely to succeed? A leader who shouts at his team, or when he's under stress, or a leader who stays in control and calmly assess the situation? And definitely the second option looks to be more viable, because shouting, or this again gives a negative aspect. And when the person shouts because he or she is not able to control his or her own emotions, then how to control the emotions associated with the members of the team? And the larger the team is, the more complex the situation is. Even as an individual level, the situation is very, very complex once it comes to the thought process, or the emotional, what I call it as trigger. Trigger is as to initiation of one emotion, because it leads and it multiplies at a very, very fast pace. So, again, there are identified key five elements to the emotional intelligence. One is self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is as to how well you are able to understand oneself. It's always, know how you feel, how you know about your emotions and your actions that affect the people around you. So this is what we call it as self-awareness. Being self-aware when you are in a leadership position also means having a clear picture of strengths and weaknesses, and it means behaving in humility. Now, this is very important for us, knowing the strengths and weaknesses, and to deal with the output of these strengths and weaknesses. Because one do have a strength, okay, fine. One do have a weakness. We cannot deny to it. Every person, every human being has got. I don't say it's certain, but there are many weaknesses, and it is very difficult to. Even if you identify the weaknesses, it's very difficult to polish upon this or to remove or to convert them into strengths. Having said everything, it's very difficult. One, because we have to understand whether I should understand it as a weakness. Not so many people, they do not believe that they have got a weakness for something, or they have got a weakness in their personality, or weakness in there are some traits which are relatively weaker than the strengths aspects. So this is very important, because one has to behave in humility is under any given situation. The balance, the emotional balance or the mental balance of our manager should remain intact and should be able to make the other people. Now, for example, in defense services, it plays a very important role. In the leader, if the group commandant loses his her own thought process, or becomes weak, then it will affect the total working of it. Second important aspect is self-regulation. Now, self-regulation is the leaders or the managers, for that matter, or the senior people. I mean, in general terms, I take it as senior people regulate themselves effectively, really verbally attack others, make rushed or emotional decisions, stereotype people, like or they compromise their values. Self-regulation is all about staying in control, where you do not compromise with your value system, where you do not get carried away with the situations which come up. In any situation, and I'm also only referring it to the business organization, because every now and then those people who work in any kind of business organization, or they're running their own business, they might be getting me, or they might agree with, as far as the situations, the outside situations, they make an impact on the person who is the leader, because again, ultimately the responsibility of carrying out the work, and that too into the all correctness, which is not always, these are always beyond the capabilities of the person. We want to take a right decision, but it is seldom, in a business organization, it happens, when you implement a particular decision, it is only then you come to know that it was a bad decision or it was a right decision. Before, you just play in a number games as to how many percentage you may be right or you may be wrong. But in every given possibility, it becomes very difficult to arrive to a conclusion that this decision is wrong or is right. So self-regulation, as I said, know your values. You should have a clear idea as to where you absolutely will not compromise. Compromise here I refers to as when we give up to a particular situation. When you should not ought to give up in a particular situation, because there are situations which comes up, which guides you, which gives you a certain, okay, fine, leave it. There's no way out. But this is what I meant by compromising a situation, because giving up again will not solve the problem. The problem remains there, as to where you live it. So hold yourself accountable. Another important aspect is self-regulation. Whether it is a right decision or wrong decision, that is again the outcome, um, which is rarely you are able to identify before even implementing it. Unless and until you implement your decision into action, it is only then one comes up with and that is why the probability, whether it is high or wrong, we can only predict the probability of the outcome, but we cannot deny, we cannot be so safe to take a right decision. It is a very difficult to situate to to identify, to justify a situation, and you come before even implementing. Okay, fine, my decision is right, it ought to be right, but equally you might not be right. So practice being calm. Another important factor of self-regulation is to remain calm in almost all the situations. Now, again, it is very easy to say, but very difficult when it comes on the implementation part of it. If things do not work as per your own aspirations, as per your own planning, as per your own, thought process, there is a tendency to lose patience, there is a tendency to get irritated, there is a tendency to to lose your calm. So again, for a business person, it is very important uh, to remain calm, because all these external to a greater strength if you're able to self-regulate your own emotions. Third and very important is motivation. Self motivation is very important. Now, what exactly motivation is, not theoretically or as per the definition, but for our own understanding, it is an inner urge to do something. Unless and until there is an inner urge, this the the positive way of doing the work, or to do the work in will not get it. It has got to be, it is related with, again, closely related with the nature of the emotions you have, because any work in business, they are subject to risk. Any decision one has to take is subject to risk. Now the risk, there may be it might be the case that the risk associated may be high, the risk associated may be less. But again, we cannot eradicate the risk is being associated with any kind of decision, whether small or big. So only what we can do is whether the risk associated is less, what will be the impact of the decision. Less risk is if you are going to lose your, for example, your time, your money, your effort. So you are, that will make not much of an effort, but definitely it will make an demand. So this is why re-examine as to why you're doing a particular job. This is one of it is easy to forget as to what really you love about your career. So take some time and remember as to why you wanted this job, this career and the job. Now these are two various aspects, so we should be able to distinguish between as to what is a job and then what is a career. So assess and reassess as to whether I'm doing the right thing, whether I'm doing the thing as to which I love doing it, which I find interest in doing it, and which has not been given or forcefully. Uh, I'm doing something which I do not like. So this will again, will you will be back to square one, which I've been discussing, and then you lose your temper. And losing temper is equally, we can equalize with it, that you're losing your own emotions. To know, if I were able to make as to what are your strengths and weaknesses, and how what to move up, to frame your own path, to identify that. But you do not have those capabilities. But again, you have got enough. Should be, this is what I said, to remain calm. Again, if you are moving upwards, and maybe the pace is slow, so one should be able to understand, yeah, one's own emotional aspect. And at least you took a decision. So this is again the best part of it. And try to reassess yourself, so that next time, if you have done something wrong, or something has gone wrong, which is very, and it goes wrong. So again, but there is some took a step forward, which might not be right at the particular result of your motivation to do something. And this will again give you another, to look out for another chance to move. Very closely related with this is the empathy. Now, empathy is a terminal behavior, but being into most of the professionals, management professionals, empathy is plays a very important role, and in controlling the critical to manage for a successful person or the team or an organization. So if you are able to do something, it is only then you distribute the work. But if the people who are working under you or working with you, a more appropriate word is working with you, if they have faith in you, it is only then if you are able to do it, so it is they believe in you, and they will hear to you and do it, because you should put yourself in someone else's position, and then look out for as to what how can you do it, or whether you can do it or not. So, and paying attention to the body language. I have given an extensive one video on this of the very importance of the body language, which plays a very very important role. But many people, they take it as something which, okay, fine, I'll manage, but it does not, because for example, even how good you are at, but I've seen, personally, and I've conducted so many training programs. The eye, they generally do not work as for the brain. The brain controls every other organ of the body, and it can control. But I seldomly, they are in the control of the brain. They go, against the as to the directions being given by the brain, and therefore, one should work upon that the combination between the tuning between the brain signals and the eye movements, they are in perfect tune, in perfect harmony. And this leads to me, the last of this of the fifth point is the social skills. Even if you have certain difficulties, you understand your emotions, you understand the emotions of the people. Let me take it as an example. It becomes again, as to how good you are in putting your point of view. When we talk about emotion, there's a point of view as to how good you are in putting your point of view in front of the others. So for this, emotional intelligence plays an important role as to you have to come up to the level of the other people, or you have to come down with the to the level to the other people. And then it is not most of the leaders, they what they I will have seen, and I believe that most of the leaders or the managers, they fail to understand the the psychology of the people who are underworking, and he or she thinks, as a manager, as a leader of the group or of the organization, whatever the case is, that they are doing right, and other people, they cannot. One should be able to communicate, because when you are communicating uh, with your group, it is you're communicating something which is not you, which one has to do, and which is very difficult to come up with. And therefore the they just should be very open to hearing the bad news, or as the good news, and they are expert in getting their team to support them. So, because the bad news and the good news, again, it's a relative term as to what good is good and what bad is bad. Again, it depends upon so many people. So one should learn to conflict resolution. Leaders must know as to how to resolve conflicts between their team members, or the customer or the vendors. So conflict resolution skill is very vital if you want to succeed. Whether it is the home, the mother does it, having 2 3 children, day in day out, there are conflict between the children, and therefore she has got a certain expertise, understand the behavior of the 3 or 2 child or 3 children, for example, and able to do justice with the situation. Able to do is uh, to come up with a solution which is acceptable largely by the higher percentage of the group. So improve your communication skills. This is very important. Improving upon your communication, your verbal skills, your listening skills. For example, again, I reiterate that it is the speaking a good. Maybe in English language, Hindi language, whatever it is, that is a separate issue altogether. Or you are very good in writing, but again, very important, which is the missing part is uh, in most of the cases, it is the listening skills. One should able to develop a good listening skills, and that comes under I take it into communication skills as well. And very important is learn how to praise others. This is very important. This is one of the motivational factors, and you should be able to give the credit. It is very difficult. It is very easy to say, to give credit to the team members or the other people, but it is, in practice, it is very difficult. So you give the share of their, good to the other people. So that's all for today from me on emotional aspect. Tomorrow I'll be coming live at 9 o'clock, a little early because it's now 9:30 seems to be a little late as far as winters are approaching. So tomorrow onwards I'll be coming live with new topic at 9 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining me.